Well, hello, and good afternoon, folks. It is now 1:30, which means we're going to get started with our middle of the day feeding and training for our amazing sea otters. If you're wondering where this voice is coming from, I am now up above you on the roof of the exhibit. My name is Will. I'm a naturalist here on staff, and I'll be coming down to answer any questions that you may have following the program. However, on to the real stars of the show. We have two sea otters on exhibit today. We have the lovely Selka and the amazing Ivy. Both of these two sea otters are 12 years old, and a good way to tell them apart is through their coats of fur. So, off to the right of the exhibit right now, you can see Ivy with her very blonde face and back and chest, as well as Selka being there in the middle. She's a little more brunette. She's got that brown fur and kind of has a little bit of a tilt to her when she's hanging out in the water. So, in just a moment here, our mammalogists will be coming on out, and we're going to see a behavior called stationing. Our otters are very familiar with their caretakers or their mammalogists, and they know just who to go to receive their snack. Now, during this program, you will see our mammalogists asking our otters to do a couple different behaviors. This is called a training program. And for this, we are using positive reinforcement. That means asking or inviting our otters to do a specific action and rewarding them with some treats after that action is performed. There you can see that we're bringing out a crate. Now today we're going to be doing a bit of a crate training with Selka, just making sure that she is comfortable going in and out of that box there. Then, if we need to take any of the otters behind the scenes to do a checkup on them, they feel comfortable entering that crate so that we can transport them. Now, today on the menu, we have some shrimp, some clam, and some squid. And otters are specialists, which means that they might have a specific food that they really love and will just stick to eating that. There we see a little spin off to the right there from Ivy. That spin is a really good way for us to check in and make sure that everything is going well mechanically with our otters. And if that spin looks a little bit off, then we know that maybe they're swimming in a little bit of an uncomfortable way and we could do a little checkup on them. Now, if you're familiar with otters, you know that they are excellent tool users, which means that they'll have a favorite rock or another hard surface to open up their food on. Now, you may also notice that here on exhibit, we are feeding them soft shell foods. So none of these treats will be having those hard shell parts like clams or crabs might have. And that is because we have fed them those hard shell foods on exhibit before. There was one inconvenient surface that was their favorite to open up those foods on, and it was those lovely windows that you're looking through now. We did have to buff those scratches and scrapes out of the window, and since that point, we've been giving them the soft foods on exhibit. However, when they're behind the scenes, they do still get those hard-shelled foods. So I would like to talk about what we're seeing there in the middle. Looks like Ivy's going to be coming back into the water, but there for a little while, she was out on the deck. When an otter does this, we call it hauling out. It's quite a unique thing that we all get to see here at the aquarium, as otters are quite vulnerable when they're out of the water like that. They feel much more at home when they're on or under the surface, and out in the wild, you probably wouldn't really be seeing an otter out on land, as soon as they caught a glimpse of you, they would slip back into the water. So today, I'd like to focus on the sea otter's fur. Sea otters actually have the densest fur in the entire animal kingdom. They have around 1 million hairs on every square inch of their body. And now Ivy's given us a good show of that fur out on the deck there. You can see how quickly it looks like that water is just dripping right off of her. So since otters are eating so much food, they still don't have large stores of body fat built up. And they do rely on that dense coat of fur to stay warm. So right before this program, and especially afterwards, you're going to see our otters switch to some grooming practices. They'll be doing what look like some somersaults there in the water, or giving themselves a little bit of a massage. These are those grooming practices, keeping that fur in good condition, as well as slowly massaging and pushing small pockets of air underneath those layers of fur. These pockets of air act as a wetsuit or a dry suit, helping to keep our otters nice and warm when they're swimming in the water. Now, this does mean that each time an otter dives down to forage for food, those pockets of air are being released. And each time she resurfaces, she will then have to re-groom herself. This practice leads to around 3 to 5 hours of grooming every single day and contributes to their very large appetite. So you may have seen there on your programs that there are 3 separate feedings today for our otters. That's because of their big appetite. On any given day, they'll eat between 20 and 25% of their body weight. And it looks like just off to the left there, Selka was given our retrieval cue, which asks her to head on down to the bottom of the exhibit and pick up one of those enrichment toys. And on any given day, they will eat between 20 and 25% of their body weight, which for you or me is like eating 20 large pizzas or 40 cheeseburgers. And that's a lot of food. So that retrieval cue off to the left there, just heading back to that really quickly, you can see Selka's getting nicely rewarded for that. This is very similar to how our otters will be heading down to the bottom of the ocean to grab some of their food, sea urchins, crabs, or clams. And so having them head on down to the bottom of the exhibit and grab an enrichment toy is a good way to keep those behaviors up to date. Now, those other colorful items that are here on exhibit and also still down there at the bottom, these are those enrichments for our otters. Mental, physical stimulation for them to switch up their daily routines and help them to see something different. If they were to be swimming around this exhibit seeing the same thing every day, they would get quite bored, and it's pretty good to switch this up for our otters. Sometimes our mammalogists will put some of their food into those enrichment toys, giving them a bit of a challenge to get that food out. Much like how out in the wild they would be smacking those clamshells or crabs against a hard surface to get that soft food on the inside, this is what they'll do with those enrichment toys. Now that brown bath that is up there on the exhibit on the beach is another enrichment. It was filled with ice this morning. And ice is a really good spot for our otters to get their crunch. Since they're not getting those hard-shelled foods on exhibit, giving them that ice and the crunch that they really enjoy is another great enrichment. It's also a really good source of fresh water for our otters, as they will usually be receiving that fresh water from their food source out in the wild. So now that it looks like the feeding and training program has come to a close, you're going to see these otters switch to those grooming practices, keeping that fur nice and clean. And if you're looking for more otter content today, look no further than the Ottertorium on the first floor right behind you, where you can see Luna, a sea otter story, and learn all about our rehabilitation program. Or take a trip out to our back deck, where we have the viewing stations and binoculars set up for you to see the local otters just out at play on the kelp forest. Again, my name is Will. I'll be coming down to answer any questions that you may have. And if you're moving along, I wish you a wonderful afternoon here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.